All right, so welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we are going to be looking at Bitcoin millionaires.
Ooh, Bitcoin millionaires.
We've got a blog post with a ton of crazy stories about people who made it big.
Nice.
A website article that names some of the biggest names in the crypto world.
Okay.
And a YouTube video with tips on how to actually get rich with crypto.
Sounds promising.
I'm joined by our expert, as always, to help me unpack all of this.
Happy to be here.
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is is it all just luck? Or is there like a secret sauce or something?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What is it that actually sets these Bitcoin millionaires apart?
Right.
Was it just being in the right place at the right time, or did they have some kind of strategy, some kind of foresight that the rest of us just didn't?
Yeah, or maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
And I think what's so interesting is even if we're not all trying to become Bitcoin millionaires, there's probably still a lot we can learn from their stories, right?
Absolutely. I mean, these are people who saw an opportunity and seized it. There are definitely lessons there for all of us, no matter what our goals are.
Totally. Okay, so let's get into some of these stories. One of the things that really jumped out at me was how many of these people kind of became millionaires by accident.
Oh, the accidental millionaires?
Like this guy, Christopher Koch.
Yeah.
He bought $27 worth of Bitcoin back in 2009, just for some research he was doing for his master's thesis, and then totally forgot about it.
Classic.
Yeah. And get this, when Bitcoin blew up, that tiny little investment turned into over $1 million.
Oh, wow. Just goes to show you sometimes it pays to be forgetful.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But I mean, was he just incredibly lucky, or did he have some sort of sixth sense?
I mean, timing was definitely on his side. Those early days of Bitcoin were like the Wild West. Anything could happen. But I also think there's something to be said for being open to new ideas. Willing to experiment with something that most people didn't even understand. So maybe a bit of luck and a bit of vision.
That's true. It takes a certain kind of personality to put money into something that everyone else is just dismissing as internet monopoly money. Right.
Right. I mean, most people probably thought he was crazy at the time.
For sure. Okay, so we've got this accidental millionaire, but then there are also the people who really saw the potential of Bitcoin early on and went all in.
Yeah, the true believers.
There's this guy, they call him Mr. Smith in one of the articles, software engineer. He invested $3,000 in Bitcoin back in 2010.
Back when it was, what, like $1 a coin?
Something like that, yeah.
Crazy to think about it now.
And that $3,000 turned into, wait for it, $25 million.
It's bananas. It really highlights that exponential growth that we saw in those early days of crypto. The gains were just astronomical.
The article said he quit his job, and now he travels the world, flies first class, stays in 5-star hotels, the whole 9 yards.
Not a bad life.
Seriously. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little jealous.
Yeah.
But it also makes me wonder, does that kind of money really make you happy?
It's a good question. We always hear these stories about lottery winners who end up miserable or people who come into sudden wealth and it ends up ruining their lives.
Yeah.
I think it's more complicated than just, more money equals more happiness.
Absolutely. It probably changes everything about your life, right? Your relationships, the way you see the world, even the way you see yourself.
I think so. It's a huge adjustment.
Okay, so we've got the accidental millionaires, the early doctors who saw the potential and went big. But then there are also these people who didn't just buy Bitcoin. They became part of the whole crypto movement.
Oh, yeah. The builders, the innovators, the evangelists.
Exactly. Like this guy, Jeremy Gardner. He didn't just invest in Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
He founded this thing called the Blockchain Education Network to try and teach people about the technology.
Yeah.
He even lived in this place called the Crypto Castle with a bunch of other crypto enthusiasts.
I've heard about the Crypto Castle. Sounds legendary.
Right. And it just shows how, for some people, crypto is more than just a way to make money. It's like a whole philosophy, a whole way of life.
It's about decentralization, transparency, challenging the status quo. A lot of these early adopters were drawn to the ideology behind it, not just the potential for profit.
And some of those people ended up building entire empires based on blockchain, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you've got Vitalik Buterin with Ethereum,
Yeah.
Changpeng Zhao with Binance, Brian Armstrong with Coinbase. These are the guys who took this crazy new technology and turned it into something that's used by millions of people around the world.
Right.
And they've made billions doing it.
I mean, it's mind-blowing. What do you think sets these guys apart? Were they just like coding geniuses from the start? Or is it something else?
Well, I think you have to have a certain amount of technical skill to build something as complex as a cryptocurrency exchange or a blockchain platform. But it's more than just coding chops. I think it's about vision, being able to see the potential of something that most people just don't get, and then having the courage to go for it.
And a lot of these guys were pretty young when they started out, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Vitalik was barely out of his teens when he created Ethereum.
So it's not just about experience or having a ton of money to invest. It's about having that entrepreneurial spirit.
Exactly. It's about being willing to take risks, to experiment, to learn as you go.
And it's kind of inspiring, right? I mean, it makes you feel like anything is possible.
I agree. But it's also important to remember that we often only hear about the success stories. We don't hear about all the people who tried and failed.
That's true. Like, there was this kid, Eric Finman, who invested $1,000 in Bitcoin when he was 12. And by 18, he was a millionaire. But, I mean, how many other 12-year-olds tried to do the same thing and lost everything?
Right. It's like we only see the tip of the iceberg.
So maybe it's not as easy as it looks.
Definitely not. But I still think there are valuable lessons to be learned from these stories, even if we're not all going to become crypto millionaires.
For sure. So we've got these amazing success stories. But what about the average person who wasn't around in those early days of Bitcoin? Is it still possible to make a killing in crypto, or have we missed the boat?
Well, that's where our YouTube source, your friend Andy, comes in. He claims that it's not too late to become a crypto millionaire, even in 2025.
Okay, so what's his secret?
Well, he calls himself a poor man's venture capitalist, which I find kind of intriguing. He basically spends all his time looking for those undervalued tokens that have the potential to blow up, kind of like a talent scout for the crypto world.
Okay, so he's not just buying Bitcoin. He's looking for the next big thing.
Exactly. And he's spreading his investments across multiple projects because he knows that not all of them are going to be winners. In fact, he says he expects 90% of his investments to fail, which is, pretty sobering.
Wow, 90%. That's a lot of failure.
It is. But he's betting on that other 10% hitting it big enough to make up for all the losses. It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy.
So he's got this, like, crazy high tolerance for risk, but he's also diversifying. Is there anything else to his strategy?
Yeah, he's also super dedicated to maximizing his investment capital. He talks about selling everything he could to free up cash, taking on like 3 different side hustles. It's pretty intense.
Wow. So this guy's all in.
He is. And he makes it clear that you can't just, sit back and hope for the best. You got to be proactive, always learning, always hustling.
Okay, so it sounds like your friend Andy has a system. He's not just, throwing darts at a board.
Right. He's doing his research. He's thinking strategically. He's putting in the work.
And I think that's a really important takeaway for all of us, right? Whether we're interested in crypto or not, success in any field requires effort, dedication, a willingness to learn.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So it sounds like we've got a lot to unpack here.
We do. We've got accidental millionaires, tech pioneers, venture capitalists, and everything in between. The world of Bitcoin is a wild and fascinating place.
Yeah, and it's only getting wilder.
It is. So we've been talking about all these different paths to becoming a Bitcoin millionaire.
Yeah, from accidental millionaires to like full-on crypto entrepreneurs.
It really makes you wonder, what kind of person thrives in this world? Like, is there a certain personality type that's drawn to crypto?
Are they all risk takers?
Yeah, definitely. You got to have a high tolerance for risk, but also I think, a strong belief in the power of technology, like that it can actually change the world.
It's almost like a little bit of a rebellious streak, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like willing to challenge the status quo.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of that story about Eric Finman, the teenager who invested $1,000 in Bitcoin when he was 12.
Oh, yeah, and became a millionaire by 18.
Right. Instead of going to college, he's like traveling the world, investing in startups. I mean, a part of me is kind of jealous.
I get it. It's a pretty amazing story. But it's also important to remember that, we're only seeing one side of the coin.
What do you mean?
Well, we tend to focus on the success stories, right? The outliers.
Oh.
It's called survivorship bias.
Oh, right. Yeah.
We see the people who made it big, but we don't see all the people who, maybe tried to do the same thing and lost their shirts.
So we're only getting like a very, very small glimpse of the whole picture.
Exactly. So while Eric's story is inspiring, it's just one data point. It doesn't mean that everyone who invests in crypto is going to become a millionaire.
Right, right. That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the hype.
For sure. It's important to be realistic and to do your research.
Okay, so not everyone's going to become a millionaire overnight. But are there still opportunities for the average person to make money in crypto, even if they weren't around in like the early days?
I think so. It's just a different game now.
How so?
Well, back in the early days, it was really all about Bitcoin, right? But now there's this whole ecosystem of the different cryptocurrencies and blockchain projects.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep track of. I mean, I barely understand Bitcoin, let alone all these other coins.
It can be overwhelming for sure, but it also means there are more opportunities to find those hidden gems.
Like what kind of opportunity?
Well, remember Kane Ellis? The guy who mined a bunch of Bitcoin back in 2010?
Oh, yeah, the one who sold some of it for a McDonald's meal?
Yeah. Imagine if he had held on to all of it. He'd be set for life.
Seriously. Talk about an expensive burger.
Right. But even he had to start somewhere, and he didn't know what it would become.
So he started mining Bitcoin when it was practically worthless.
Right, when it was still this kind of fringe experiment. And look at him now. He's a successful entrepreneur. He's got his own crypto company.
I guess what you're saying is that it's not too late to get involved.
Exactly. There are still opportunities out there. It's just about finding them.
And how do you do that?
Well, that's where research and education come in. And, your friend Andy, he's got a whole strategy based on being a poor man's venture capitalist.
Right. He was talking about looking for those undervalued tokens.
Exactly. He spends his time researching different projects, trying to find those that have the potential to 10x, 100x.
And he's not afraid to diversify, right? He knows that not every investment is going to be a winner.
Exactly. He's spreading his risk just like a real venture capitalist.
But he also emphasizes the importance of like earning more money to invest, right? He was talking about selling all his stuff, taking on extra jobs.
Yeah, he's really committed to maximizing his capital.
So it's not just about investing what you have, it's about finding ways to increase what you have to invest in the first place.
Exactly. It's about hustle. It's about being creative.
And then there was that whole thing about building a passive loop.
Oh, yeah, that's one of his key principles. Basically, using the profits from your investments to fuel further investments.
So like a snowball effect.
Exactly. The idea is to create a system where your money is constantly working for you.
Sounds pretty amazing, but I imagine it's not as easy as it sounds.
No, definitely not. It requires a lot of discipline and a deep understanding of the market. But it's a powerful concept if you can pull it off.
Okay, so we've talked about the different types of Bitcoin millionaires, the importance of research and diversification. But one thing I keep coming back to is the human side of it all.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about the money, is it?
Right. We were talking about Mr. Smith earlier, living the high life, traveling the world. But what about the emotional impact of all this?
I think that's something that often gets overlooked. The pressure, the stress, the fear of losing everything, it must be a real roller coaster.
Yeah, totally. Like imagine checking your portfolio every day and seeing those wild swings in the market.
I know. And we heard about Terry Proud, the retiree who put some of his savings into crypto and is over the moon about how it's going.
Yeah. So it can be really positive too. I guess it just depends on your personality and how you approach it.
I think so. It's important to have a solid financial plan to understand your risk tolerance. And maybe even more importantly, to have a good support system. People you can talk to, who can help you stay grounded when things get crazy.
It's not just about the numbers. It's about the human element, the psychology of it all.
Exactly. And, it can be really inspiring too. Remember Javed Khan?
The one who bought a Bentley.
Yeah. He was just using Bitcoin to transfer money at first. But then he started noticing that the price was going up every time he held onto it for a while, so he started buying more and more. And eventually, he made enough profit to buy his dream car.
He even sent a video of himself at the Bentley dealership to his mom.
Yeah, and she cried tears of joy. Oh, that's so sweet.
It just shows how, success in crypto can have this ripple effect. It's not just about the individual. It's about their families, their communities.
That's a really good point. It's not just about accumulating wealth. It's about what you do with it, how you use it to make a difference in your life and the lives of the people around you.
Exactly. And I think that brings us to another really important aspect of the crypto world, which is the sense of community. The the willingness to help each other out.
Right, like it's not just about every man for himself.
No, not at all. I mean, think about Jeremy Gardner and the Blockchain Education Network. He's not just trying to make money. He's trying to educate people about this technology, to empower them.
Yeah, and there are all these online communities and forums where people are sharing information and helping each other out.
It's really amazing. It's like this whole movement, people from all over the world united by this shared belief in the power of blockchain.
And it's a movement that's growing every day.
It is. It's exciting to be a part of it. It really is. All right, so we're back. We've been deep diving into the world of Bitcoin millionaires, trying to figure out, like, what makes them tick.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. We've seen some pretty incredible stories, haven't we?
We have. But I'm curious, like, what can we, the average folks, actually learn from all of this? Even if we're not, trying to buy a Lamborghini with Bitcoin.
That's the key question, right? How do we take all these fascinating stories and turn them into something actionable, something that can help us in our own lives?
Exactly. Like, I don't have thousands of dollars to just throw at Bitcoin, but I do want to understand how these people got to where they are, and if there are any lessons I can apply to, my own goals.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest takeaways here is the importance of, just taking action. So many of these Bitcoin millionaires, they didn't just sit around waiting for things to happen. They saw an opportunity and they jumped on it.
Even when everyone else thought they were crazy, right?
Exactly. I mean, think about Daniel Crocker, the guy who bought Bitcoin back in 2012 and held on to it for 8 years. He ended up selling enough to cover half the deposit on his house.
Wow. Just from holding on to some Bitcoin for a few years? That's amazing.
It is. It shows the power of long-term thinking and, actually taking that first step.
So you don't have to be a tech whiz or a financial expert to get involved in crypto.
Not at all. I mean, there are so many resources available now. Online courses, YouTube tutorials, even just talking to people in the crypto community. Anyone can learn the basics.
Okay, so maybe it's not as intimidating as it seems, but it's still super important to, do your research right, not just jump into anything blindly.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, especially in the world of crypto. You need to understand what you're investing in and what the risks are.
Speaking of risk, I keep thinking about your friend Andy and his whole poor man's venture capitalist strategy. It's all about spreading your investments, not putting all your eggs in one basket, right?
Exactly. Diversification is key.
Yeah.
You want to find those hidden gems, those projects that have the potential to really take off. But you also have to accept that not every investment is going to be a home run.
He actually expects 90% of his investments to fail.
That's right. But he's betting on that other 10%, making up for it big time.
And it's not just about the investing side of things. He's really big on earning more money to fuel those investments, like selling stuff he doesn't need, taking on extra work, hustling.
It's about having that entrepreneurial spirit, that drive to create your own opportunities. And it's not just about crypto either. It's a mindset that can apply to any area of your life.
Totally. Like, if you want to achieve your goals, whatever they are, you got to be willing to put in the work.
Exactly. And Andy's got this whole concept of building a passive loop, which is basically using the profits from your crypto investments to fund further investments.
So, it's a self-sustaining system.
Exactly. The idea is to create a cycle where your money is constantly working for you, generating more and more wealth over time.
Sounds amazing, but I imagine it takes a lot of skill and discipline to pull that off.
It does. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It requires careful planning, risk management, and a deep understanding of the market.
And a lot of patience, I bet. Because the crypto market is anything but predictable, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster ride for sure.
Yeah.
There are going to be ups and downs, and you have to be prepared to weather the storms.
So it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. The most successful investors are the ones who are in it for the long haul.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of taking action, doing your research, diversifying your investments, and having a long-term perspective. But one thing that really stands out to me from all these stories is, the human element.
I agree. It's easy to get caught up in the numbers, the technology, the potential for profit. But at the end of the day, crypto is about people. It's about their dreams, their aspirations, their struggles.
Right, like Mr. Smith living it up in Dubai, or that guy who bought a Bentley for his mom. Exactly. And it's not always about the big wins either. Sometimes it's about the small victories, like Daniel Crocker using his Bitcoin profits to help buy a house.
Or Terry Proud, the retiree who's just thrilled to be a part of this whole crypto thing.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you, what aligns with your values and goals.
And I think that's a really important message for anyone, whether they're interested in crypto or not. It's about being curious, being adaptable, and never being afraid to step outside your comfort zone.
It's about embracing the unknown and having the courage to pursue your dreams.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll be sharing your success story on The Deep Dive. That's it for this episode, folks. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of Bitcoin millionaires.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, stay curious and keep on learning.